Welcome to part 4 and the final part of the Mighty Empires tutorial. This video is going to cover the winter season, which is a whole kind of culmination of a bunch of different things. So to start with, we'll talk about the autumn spells, and that'll be the first thing that you do in winter. And while I'm talking about the autumn spells, I'll also talk about the spring spells, which is what you do right before the next summer season. So the autumn and the summer spells we've already kind of roughly talked about, but you need to have a banner of at least 500 points that are in your capital city in order for the wizard to cast spells. Also, similarly, if you have wizard towers in your region, then you have the ability to cast spells from them as well. But it would require that you roll to see whether or not that wizard is available for that. The magic that you cast from your capital city is up to 12 spaces away, and you roll to kind of see whether or not you succeed based on the range of the spell itself. So you roll randomly to see what spell you cast, then you choose the designated space, and then you roll to see whether or not that actually passes through. So once everyone that could do a spell does a spell, that finishes the spell portion. After the spells, you do what's called the winter quarters, which is where if you had an army that was present on the field and it had marched around in the campaign season and was doing various different things, you have to determine whether or not it has a safe route back to home base. Essentially you have to be able to trace a line back to your home base without any obstructing terrain or any kind of opposing forces that would, block your way and stop you from being able to get to your home base. Similarly, if you had, let's say your home base was here, you have to be able to draw a line without any hindering movement to get back to your city. Now, if you had to move through tiles that involved difficult terrain, you have to do a route roll each time, and there's a chance that that army would get lost on the way. If you cannot trace your route back, we'll say you're blocked by other cities, or something catastrophic happens, or you fail, that army is removed from the board. They die in winter, that you don't get them back. So it doesn't matter the size of the army, if they can't make their way back home, they die in the winter. Every capital city is going to give you the ability to store up 4 banners worth in the city itself. A regular city will let you store up 3 banners. A fortress will let you hold up, a capital city gives you 4, a city gives you 2 banners, a fortress gives you 1, and a village gives you 1. So a village would only be able to store 1 banner, whereas a city would be able to store 2 banners, and a capital city would be able to store 4. After you have all of your armies back in their home base, all of the baggage that they would have gained, or they still have with them, so we'll say that this army had 5 baggage still with it. At the end of getting it back home, that baggage comes off the board. It's assumed that that baggage is used up in winter. After you finish getting all of your armies back to their home base, you move into what's called the events, or the winter events, which is a chart that you roll on to see what happens to each player. So each player is going to roll on a chart, and that chart is going to tell you what happens in your kingdom throughout the winter months. The next portion of the game is what I would consider the most exciting. So as you look at your realm and all of the different cities and capitals and villages that you've acquired throughout the course of the summer, You take time and you count up the revenue that you would have gained in that season. If you're counting revenue, you're going to get a revenue for every temple, depending on your race. Some races don't get that bonus. The mines, again, similarly, will give you revenue. Depends on the race, depends on what your mines do. You get a revenue or a crown for a ship, a village, a fortress, and cities give you 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If I had any boats, that would be 10. If I had any temples or mines, that 11, 12. So you count up all of your points. And what you'll do is, I'll give you a sheet, or you can make your own sheet to kind of keep track of how many capitals do I have, how many cities do I have, how many fortresses, villages, barren, ships. And then what you do is you have the multiplier factor right there next to it, and that tells you how many gold crowns you have. Then you tally that all the way up, and then are there any other crowns that you gained, and then what's your total. So you can tally up all of your points, and then you get to spend them on whatever you want to spend them on. So here are the things that you have the opportunity to spend your gold crowns on. You can spend them on diplomacy. You can send diplomats to another nation and try and convince them to be on your side. You can recruit troops and bring them, kind of bring your banners up to a larger size and have bigger armies. You can kind of build things that were raised. So it's called recovery, and it includes troops and cities and fortresses and villages that have been burned by one nation or by yourself. You can also construct. You can take a village and make it bigger. You can build a village. You can build a temple. You can build a whole bunch of different things. Each one of them costs something different. You can also give yourself baggage points, meaning you can give yourself more food for the summer season. The full list of options for you to buy is as follows. You can get 1 point of baggage for 1 crown. You can get 1 assassin for 1 crown. You can get D6 spies for 1 crown. You can get a saboteur for 1 crown. You can get a agent for 1 crown. You can rebuild raised structures with D6 roll, and then you can spend crowns to try and get up to the number that you're trying to get to. You can go on a diplomatic mission for 1 crown. You can have 100 points worth of troops for 1 crown. You can convert a village to a fortress for 5 crowns. You can build a fortress, just even in a barren tile, for 10 crowns. You can turn a village into a city for 15 crowns. And you can build a temple for 10 crowns. Some nations have the ability to build temples for less. Similarly, you can build a mine in a mountain region for 15 crowns. So you spend the revenue that you've built up, and then you deploy the troops that you've bought, and you take all of your actions with the spies, assassins, saboteurs that you've done. So we'll say that I got myself an assassin and a saboteur. And, depending on how many people are playing will depend on how complicated this is. Every person, one at a time, one agent at a time, takes their agent and puts it face down in a location that they want to have the action take place. Then once everybody has placed all of their actions face down, they flip those over. And you now find out that that person was trying to have someone assassinated there and try and blow up the city there. Your assassinations can be all the way as far as the king of a nation. Your sabotaging of people's cities can completely ruin them and turn them into a raised settlement that doesn't gain them any bonuses the next round. There's a wide variation of different things that can happen with the different kind of agent actions. And then the final thing that happens in the winter season is full circle again to the spring spells, which again is the same as the autumn spells, which is you've got to have a magic user in your capital city in a banner of 500 points or more, and you can cast magic up to 12 spaces away. Again, the winter season is probably where the most customizing elements of your faction, your nation come up. You get to decide what you're going to build, what you're going to spend your money on. You get to see the benefits of the labor that you put in the summer, and so it really starts to flesh out what you're going to do with your nation. And from one winter to the next, you might be lucky enough to have 15 dragons come out of the mountains and burninate everything that you've tried to build up. So the randomness of this game is always present, especially in the winter season, but it doesn't take away the joy of trying to build something, even if the dragons burn it all down. So that's the final video of our Mighty Empires kind of rule set. Again, if you want to go back and watch one section to the next, depending on what you're trying to remember, I hope that this has been helpful.